All right, we'll go ahead and call this Tooele City Planning Commission meeting to order this Wednesday, May 24th at the hour of 7 p.m. here in City Council chambers. First item on our agenda tonight is our Pledge of Allegiance. If you all please rise, remove your hats and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Always thank you for that. Next item on our agenda is our roll call. Commissioner Hammer.
Here.
Commissioner Proctor.
Here.
Commissioner Sloan.
Here.
Commissioner Robinson.
Here.
And Commissioner Goches.
Present.
Will please excuse Commissioners Dunn, Jensen, and Newell. We'll recognize Councilwoman Manzione, staff members Agard, Hanson, Potter, and Baker. Thank you. Moves us to number 3 on our agenda. And before we get started on this, number 3 has 2 parts to it here, a public hearing and a recommendation on a land use map and a zoning map amendment. So we are going to hear the public hearing for both of those, just one public hearing for both of those tonight, so we don't have to repeat ourselves over and again. They are the same item, just two different maps, and Mr. Agard will explain that through his presentation here. So first one here is our public hearing and a recommendation on a land use map amendment to consider a request to reassign the land use designation for approximately 326 acres located at approximately 1200 west, 700 south from the existing land use designation of regional commercial to light industrial land use. Mr. Agard.
Thank you, Commissioners. At the April 12th Planning Commission meeting, a zoning map amendment application was presented and proposed. At that meeting, a CSD, or Commercial Special District, was proposed to the Planning Commission. After the notices for that meeting were issued, staff determined that the CSD is disqualified if the proposed project includes industrial-type uses. Planning Commission held a public hearing, took comment, and voted to table the item in order to provide staff with time to resolve the CSD issue. Since that meeting, staff have worked together to come up with a solution, have decided to scrap the CSD request altogether. Instead of a CSD, staff is proposing the creation of an entirely new zoning district, the Tooele City Business Park Zoning District. Accompanying the creation of a new zoning district is a new zoning ordinance that has been written specifically for this development and zoning district. The Tooele City Business Park will involve the 326 acres highlighted in red on the aerial photograph. Let me go back to the aerial. The property extends from 1220 south to approximately 300 south on the north side and extends from 1050 west on the east to the Union Pacific Rail Corridor on the west. Being immediately adjacent to a viable rail corridor provides a unique opportunity for the business park to have rail-accessible industries and businesses. As the Commission Chair mentioned, the agenda item number 3 includes 2 items. One of them is the land use map amendment, and the other is a zoning map amendment. Both applications involve the same property and are part of the same Tooele City Business Park. Staff established 2 applications for the purpose of tracking the progress of the legislative matters through our processes. And rather than separate them into 2 agenda items, it'd be more efficient to combine them into 1 public hearing and 1 discussion item. The land use map designates the entire property as regional commercial. The regional commercial designation requires the RC Regional Commercial Zoning District and the RD Research and Development Zoning District. The regional commercial designation does not permit any industrial zoning districts, and as such prohibits industrial land uses. The proposed Tooele City Business Park will permit a wide range of light industrial and industrial service type uses, and as such is classified as an industrial zoning district, or will be classified. Tooele City Ordinance requires that all zoning map amendments comply with the land use map of the Tooele City General Plan. Therefore, in order to consider an industrial business park on the subject property, it would be best to change the land use map designation to keep the 2 plans succinct and compliant. Therefore, the land use map is requested to be reassigned to the light industrial land use designation indicated in purple. The zoning map amendment application is more than just a zoning map amendment. The request to amend the zoning map also includes the creation of a new zoning district and the adoption of a zoning ordinance creating standards and qualifications for all development that occurs within that zoning district. The current zoning on the subject properties is LI Light Industrial and RD Research and Development. And the zoning map amendment proposes to reassign the subject properties to the TCBP to Willis City Business Park Zoning District. At the previous public hearing, when the CSD was being considered, there were numerous comments related by the public to the Planning Commission concerning having industrial uses located in such close proximity to existing residential homes and zones. As we were working to form the new development standards and codes for this business park, we took special care to preserve the residential integrity of those single-family and multifamily residential uses. This is the concept plan for the business park. It should be noted that lot boundaries, building footprints, as well as the Mid-Valley Highway corridor are not finalized, but may be subject to minor alterations in the future depending on what UDOT does and what the individual businesses that propose to locate there will need for their businesses. The zoning within the business park is proposed to be divided into 3 sections. Section A is highlighted in green, Section B is highlighted in purple, and Section C is highlighted in blue. Section A is closest to the residential zones and uses. Section B is located closer to the railroad corridor and is farthest away from the residential zones. Each section is designed in the TCBP ordinance with uses and development standards specific to its location. Section A is closest to the residential properties. Section A is limited to commercial and office-type land uses only and prohibits industrial uses. Building height in Section A is limited to 35 feet, which is the same building height limitations in the residential areas. Section A requires additional architecture on building facades facing residential structures, and all roof lines on buildings in Section A shall be pitched roofs, with mechanical equipment located inside the building or on the ground. There is no rail access to properties in Section A. Staff has designed Section A to serve as a protective buffer between the industrial uses and the residential uses. We've tried to minimize the impact of these residential properties by requiring lower intensity uses, better building architecture, and reduced building height. Section B begins the industrial uses. However, Section B is focused towards lighter industrial uses that do not generate impacts to surrounding properties in the form of noise, glare, vibrations, odors, dust, and so forth. In this section, buildings are permitted additional building height up to 50 feet. Only front facades and facades facing public streets are required to have additional architectural features, and flat roofs are permitted, though rooftop mechanical equipment must be screened by decorative parapets. Properties in Section B will have railroad access. And then Section C is where the heavier industrial uses are permitted. Section C is immediately adjacent to the Union Pacific Corridor and are considered to involve more heavier manufacturing uses that may generate some impacts. Building heights in Section A are permitted up to 70 feet, as they are in the city's standard industrial zoning district. Architecture in this section will be the same as in Section B, and properties in Section C will have railroad access. The new code will establish architectural standards for building frontages facing public streets and facing existing residential structures. The code also establishes landscaping standards for frontages, parking areas, and critical areas. Fencing standards are established for businesses involving accessory outdoor storage to ensure proper screening of unsightly storage of materials. Regarding signs in the development, this ordinance refers to the existing sign code to manage the signage for those proposed businesses. There is an additional provision in the ordinance that prohibits any off-premise or billboard signs along the future Mid-Valley Highway corridor. And then parking regulations shall follow established city parking codes. The new code also establishes the criteria for wind turbines, limiting the height of turbines to 160 feet to the top of the blade, and turbines must maintain a setback equal to 115% the total height of the tower from all property lines. Wind turbines will only be permitted in sections B and C and are prohibited in section A. The new zoning code will also include a table of commercial uses specific to the Tooele City Business Park zoning district. Staff diligently considered each use in the city's current table of commercial uses and pared the table down to 2 pages instead of 7 pages. Many heavy industrial uses permitted in the standard industrial zone are not permitted in this new zone. Uses such as hazardous material storage or chemical manufacture and storage are not permitted in the Tooele City Business Park. Uses such as recycling yards, auto wrecking yards are not permitted in the Tooele City Business Park. We tried to focus on uses that generate jobs, conduct most of their business inside of a structure, and can maintain an aesthetically pleasing environment. There was one error in the staff report that I do need to correct. The staff report indicated that there were no development standards for lot sizes, lot widths, lot frontages, and for building setbacks. That was incorrect. The new code defers to the current development standards found in the LI Light Industrial Zoning District, so we do have standards for lots and for building setbacks. Staff has heard the public concerns, and we have diligently worked to form a new code that preserves the residential integrity of the existing residences to the east, but also enables the city and other property owners within the development to develop and utilize their property for rail access industrial uses. Staff understands it is pleasing to live next to a vacant field. I myself was raised in this exact area and used to hunt rabbits, ride bikes, and have BB gun wars in the fields where the houses now currently exist. Unfortunately, if we don't own those fields, it cannot be demanded that the property owners be prohibited from developing their property. This proposed ordinance is a good compromise and demonstrates a good faith effort on behalf of Tooele City to protect those existing residents by keeping the least impactful development close to the residential zones and the most impactful industrial development the farthest away. When the commission makes a motion for tracking purposes and for clarity, staff would request that you make one motion for the land use map amendment, vote on it, and then make a separate motion on the zoning map amendment and then vote on that. This item is a public hearing, and notices were sent to all property owners within 200 feet of the subject property. Staff received one written comment from a Mr. Chris Freeriksen, who expressed general pleasure in that the new plan addresses the concerns and is considerate to the residents who will be most affected. He also expressed support in having the area divided into 3 specific sections. That comment was forwarded to the commission for your information. So that's my report on the proposed Tooele City Business Park zoning district, the land use map amendment. If you have any questions about the proposed zoning district, myself and Roger can address that. If you have any questions about the RDA's involvement, I'm sure Councilwoman Manzioni can address those. So if you have any questions, I'll take a stab at answering for you.
All right, we'll bring this back to the commission for questions for staff. None. Surprised. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Mr. Agard. This item does require a public hearing. As I said, this includes the land use map amendment and the zoning map amendment for this item. 2 different items here, but the same map. So we're going to hear the public hearing. We're going to limit you to 3 minutes per person. Please, if one person before you has said the same things, we don't need redundancy, so we will take notes and we will listen to what you have to say. We're going to leave it to 3 minutes per person, and I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on item number 3, both parts. So if you would, please approach the podium, write your name for the record, and then state your name for the audible record. Any takers?
Hello, my name is Ann Paris. I live on 1050 West. My backyard is the field. My husband and I were at the previous hearing where the flow of traffic was discussed with trucks, specifically reaching the more industrial uses. And it was brought up that trucks aren't allowed in the neighborhoods. When Main Street was closed on Monday from the oil spill, there were all the trucks on Coleman, on Tempe, and I'm just wondering what preventative measures there will be, because again, there's an elementary school right on Tempe. There are young families all around this area. So what rules will be changed, what enforcements will be made to keep the families and the residents safe from the inevitable uptick of big truck traffic and industrial vehicles and the things that will be coming inevitably from Main Street and around when that is what serves them. So that would be my one concern. I do appreciate the changes to the building heights. That the 85-foot building height that was proposed last time was kind of mind-boggling because that was higher than any of the buildings in Tooele at the time. So I appreciate that personally. That was one of our biggest concerns. But 70 feet is still 70 feet, and it doesn't matter how far away you put that from a house. You know, a 50-foot building, you're still going to see the stair steps, and a wind turbine you're still going to see that. And it's a difference of looking way out in the distance and seeing a really nice wind turbine, and, you know, it's part of what it's doing. It's a completely different thing when it's in your backyard. So super not a fan of that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paris. I knew you'd be up.
Just look at that look on her face like it was a challenge.
Okay, my name's Kalani Mascherino. I also live in I don't live as far as 1050, but I live just off 3 o'clock drive because I've been here lots of times. But my concern after last time, we talked about the trucks won't come and covered that. But where are how are all the employees getting there? And all the Amazon trucks and everything that's smaller than an 18-wheeler. All the box trucks, the Amazon vans, everything else. How is it going to get down there? Because they're not all going to go down and take Tooele Boulevard to get there. They're going to try to cut through 1220 and off at 3 o'clock and down Tempe. And like she said, we've got an elementary school. 5 nights a week, I swear to you, there's flag football. Saturdays, there's activities at that park non-stop. And there's no parking for that park. So the parking is both sides of the road, all the way around the park and into the church. Parking lot that's right behind Settlement Canyon Elementary. So if we're adding employees and Amazon Prime and everything else, it's just, I feel like it's more than the neighborhood can handle. The closest light to us is Vine and Main right now. And I know it's in the master plan. It's the master plan that we might not live to see it happen. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mascherino.
Moroni Bessendorfer. And I guess the one concern that I have is the easement between our property line, because I live on 1050, and the distance between us and the retail stores. In favor of the plan, I like the new layout. It's much more in favor of being a residential. Same concerns that have already been brought up, but my concern is our easement between the property and the retail stores.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Julia Hardy, and I live on 1220 South. And one of my concerns to bring up is the traffic that would be on my street. Like, at the top of our street, it's pretty bad as it is. I've witnessed several car accidents right now, or there while I've lived there. There was a fatality there. It was either at the end of last year, or the beginning of this year. Because turning left onto 1220 when you're coming from Stockton, it's it's pretty dangerous because everyone's driving so fast and people aren't slowing down and they're speeding around illegally for people who are trying to turn left, waiting for traffic. And then also, there's a lot of us on 1220 that have horse property that we have, I think there's at least 7 or 8 of us that have livestock. So the added noise, especially now that I hear about wind turbines and that's a disruption to some of our animals. And then, that would be my concerns.
Thank you, Ms. Hardy. Okay, seeing no one else approach the podium, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing for. Bring the baby up here, I'll rock it.
I should put the baby's name down on the list.
My name is Scott Paris. My wife mentioned we live on 1050. Our backyard is the fence, or the field. This didn't get brought up last time, but something I've been thinking about is the railroad line and the buffer between the residential. If something happens, God forbid, East Palestine, something like that, we have the field is the buffer. But now if there's buildings that are hooked up to city water lines and there's a derailment of some kind and there's, I don't know what's coming in on those rail lines. It looks like it's just Humvees right now for the Army, but I don't know what buildings or industrial companies are going to be, what they're going to be hauling, what they're going to be needing, and if there is a derailment and now there's buildings and those buildings are hooked up to water lines, the electrical grid, how does that affect not just our road, our neighborhood, but at that point, all of Tooele. So I don't know if that is what the plans are for that. And then the comment about the easement for the retail space, I believe there's a 100-foot fire break from, our backyards of 1050 into the field. I think it's Tooele's responsibility to have a 100-foot fire break, so in case the field goes up in flames. And I'm just curious, is the easement going to change, or is there still going to be a 100-foot fire break from basically the home's fence line of 1050 into that section A? So, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Paris. Any more before I close the public hearing? All right, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this item, and we'll bring it back to the commission and staff for any other further questions or comments.
Chair, I'm wondering if, specific to Ms. Paris' very first point, and Mr. Baker, maybe you can address this. I think I know what the answer is, but for those of us, and I probably don't know what the answer is. Obviously, the issue on Main Street the other day was hopefully a one-off that doesn't happen very often. And I'm assuming that the traffic that was mentioned, really there wasn't much else for them to do other than make those detours. How do we answer those concerns?
To understand the traffic impacts with any precision would take a traffic study by a traffic engineer to try to foresee into the future the amount of increased traffic that we would have. But we will not be adding any of the local streets to the existing truck routes. Tooele Boulevard is already a truck route, so we wouldn't be adding one there. 7th South is not, even though semis park on it daily. The main transportation impact is going to be the Mid-Valley Highway coming through there. That will be a major state road. One of the speakers commented about the fact that this is kind of a master plan. None of these buildings portrayed are actually planned. They're just possibilities. This will take decades to build out. And I anticipate it to build out in about the same time frame as the Mid-Valley Highway segment coming through here. So at the points in time at which truck traffic may increase, we hope to have additional infrastructure in place to handle that truck traffic. In my experience in the past is that whenever we have received public complaints about heavy truck traffic on non-truck routes, and we have informed the chief of police that he has routed his patrol officers to those areas to stop trucks, educate them that this is not a truck route, show them where the truck routes are, and when education isn't enough, start issuing tickets. So certainly by the end of this build-out, there will be impacts different than today. I think there are possibilities to mitigate those through improved road transportation facilities and enforcement.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Yes, Commissioner Goches.
To the point of the buffers zone, what is the responsibility between the residential area and the new development?
The word easement was mentioned earlier, and I did want to respond to that, and I forgot earlier. Tooele City owns that strip of property. It was originally planned to be a road. But in the 20-year ago time frame, maybe even longer, the developer of some of this area approached the city with a proposed trade of property. And in that process, the road was not built, and we obtained title to it in that trade. So it is simply not going to be a road as it was originally planned. It simply is going to be part of the property that the city owns that will be contributed to potential future development. And when I say contributed to, I don't mean given away. I just mean a part of. So that may help. City code does require a 30-foot fire break around property lines, and I know that we've done more than that, and that's fine. One of the residents on 1050 West contacted me when the city originally plowed that break and said, "What are you doing in my backyard?" And I reassured him that we were not building a road, even though it might look like we were getting ready to. So I think that answers part of your question.
All right, that's mainly the basis of the concerns I'm seeing here tonight is the traffic. And of course, as we build this property out, we will address those issues with each and every application that comes in. So we can't address those right now. This is just a map amendment request. So when they start coming to us with site plans, we can address those a little bit better, but we understand your concerns and we will do what we can, do our due diligence to our citizens. Any other?
That also applies to the materials on the railroad track. Until we know what businesses are actually going in there, we can't tell you what's going to be different other than Humvees. And we'll have to deal with those on a case-by-case basis. As it was mentioned, hazmat and any of that stuff would be prohibited in this area anyway, under this proposal.
Mr. Baker?
I'm sorry for not remembering to say it all at once, but you triggered another thought I had about one of the comments. The rail lines that we're talking about are not through rail lines. They're what we would call a rail spur. So the traffic on those will be dead-end traffic. It will be very slow. And as Andrew, the Community Development Director, mentioned, we have paired out of the table of uses dozens and dozens of heavy industrial uses that might be obnoxious to the neighborhood, but to take out so that the cars are not anticipated to be carrying loads of dangerous things. There would be no chemical storage, no chemical transfer, no explosives, nothing of that sort. If there were any chemicals, it would be only the raw materials that a company might use in their manufacturing process, whatever it is. So inventory coming in and out, raw materials coming in and out, but we don't anticipate any of the really bad stuff.
And those are all regulated by state regulations anyway, correct?
State and federal.
State and federal.
Yes. I mean, if the city council wanted to, they could allow those uses here, but some of those uses are already allowed on the other side of the tracks in the heavy industrial zoning district. And we were not trying to recreate a heavy industrial zoning district here. We intend this to be something intentionally different so that we're not competing with that and we're filling niche markets that are not being met today.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions from the commission for staff? All right.
I have a question,
Yes,
actually, Mr.
Commissioner
Baker.
Robinson, please.
Andrew, I remember the meeting 2 times ago when we discussed this, there was something said about a company that manufactured wind turbines, and that's the reason why we wanted to consider this, because they wanted one on their property. Am I remembering correctly? And if I am remembering correctly, is that the reason why this whole wind turbine thing is in here at this juncture?
I don't know if the company manufactures wind turbines. The company that is interested in this manufactures ski lift,
Oh, is that, okay.
chair lifts, gondolas, those sorts of things. They would like to have a turbine because they want to have some green energy powering their manufacturing process. They actually were behind the zoning map amendment and land use map amendment that the commission heard a month ago.
Okay.
So I'm not aware of anybody that manufactures wind turbines. There's just a company that would like to have one.
All right, sorry, I misremembered, okay. But it's just the one company that's expressed interest in it?
Just the one. Yep.
If I do remember correctly, that turbine was only 85 feet tall, not the
Okay.
160 or whatever.
Right.
So- But they'd still be held to that 115% in setback, so,
But it was mentioned 160 foot.
for that one, but not this one. This one was smaller. I remember Jared Stewart did state that.
That's an important detail, that if a wind turbine is placed anywhere in the blue zones, it has to be at least 115% of its height away from the property line. So if a turbine is 100 feet to the top of the prop, the tip of the prop, then it would have to be 115 feet away from every property line. So I think that's going to be a self-limiting factor in a lot of these properties.
Yes, that's a very good point. All right, good discussion. Any other questions from commission to the staff? All right, so we are going to do this, as Mr. Agard pointed out, we're going to do this in two ways, or in two motions. The first motion I'll entertain is one on a land use amendment to consider the request to reassign the land use destination for this area. So this is just for the land use map amendment, and I will entertain a motion on that one.
I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Commissioner Proctor.
I move we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the Tooele City Business Park Land Use Map Amendment request by the Tooele City RDA, reassigning the land use designation for approximately 326 acres from regional commercial to light industrial, application number P23-407, based on the findings listed in the staff report dated May 16th, 2023.
I have a positive recommendation for Commissioner Proctor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Commissioner Hammer. Commissioner Hammer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor.
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan. Aye. Commissioner Robinson.
Aye.
Commissioner Goches.
Aye.
I am Chairman Hamilton. I also vote aye. This one passes with a positive recommendation that goes up to the City Council. So it's not done yet. City Council still has to hear this. Number two on this particular item is I'll entertain a motion on an ordinance and zoning map amendment to create the new TCPB or BP Tooele City Business Park Zoning District.
Mr. Chairman, I move forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the Tooele Business Park zoning map amendment request by the Tooele City RDA to create a new Tooele City Business Park zoning district, to adopt the new zoning district ordinance, and to reassign approximately 326 acres to the TCBP Tooele City Business Park zoning district, application number P23-408, based on the findings subject to the conditions listed in the staff report dated May 16, 2023.
I have a positive recommendation from Commissioner Sloan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Commissioner Goches. Commissioner Hammer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor.
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan. Aye. Commissioner Robinson.
Aye.
Commissioner Goches.
Aye.
I am Chairman Hamilton. I also vote aye. Once again, this is a positive recommendation heading up to the City Council for its next steps. Yeah. Moves us on to number 4 on our agenda is a public hearing and a decision on a conditional use permit request by Crystal Nearings to authorize the use of kennel on 0.5 acres located at approximately 580 North, 1000 West in the LI Light Industrial Zoning District. Mr. Agard.
Thank you, Commissioners. This conditional use permit applies to the property highlighted in red on the aerial photograph. It is located west of Union Pacific Railroad, north of McKellar Street, and east of 1000 West. You're probably familiar with the property. It's currently operated as the Hunsaker Meats. It's my understanding the Hunsaker Meats is getting out of the business, and we have a new potential use for the property. As far as surrounding land uses, there is a commercial building being constructed to the north, and we have some existing homes located on the west side of 1000 West. All other properties surrounding it are undeveloped ground. The current zoning of the property is LI Light Industrial, as are properties to the north and south and to the east. The homes are zoned RR1, which is rural residential 1-acre lots. The applicant is proposing to operate a kennel and animal daycare for cats and dogs. And they are proposing to operate the kennel in the existing structure. The applicant has indicated to me they will not be kenneling the animals outside, that they will be kenneled inside the existing meat processing plant. They are proposing to fence the property in chain link fencing for the safety of the community and also for the safety of some exercise or so forth. That's about it in regards to what they're proposing with this conditional use permit. We did send out notices to the property owners within 200 feet. I have not received any comments or feedback about this request. So staff's recommending approval of this conditional use permit with the basic conditions listed in your staff report.
According to the map, doesn't look like there's very many residents out there.
Not many
to
people
mount
around it. Nope.
Perfect. We'll bring this back to the commission for questions for staff. All right, I'll entertain a motion on item number 4 on our agenda.
need a public hearing.
No, we need a public hearing. Thank you, sir. This one does require a public hearing. I'm going to underline it so I can tell myself again. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing for this particular item. If you would please approach the podium, write your name for the record, and then state your name for the audible record.
I live on Keller Street. I'm not opposed to this. I just think some stipulations need to be identified. They say they're not going to have dogs outside. They're going to have dogs outside. They say they're not going to have, just giving them a permit. I think it needs to be clarified. If they're going to keep dogs overnight, are they going to be contained in the evening? Some things identified, imagine their business permit. That is a rural area, especially on that side of the tracks. It's just saying that the new owner is going to do this doesn't seem to work. So if the city's going to allow it in the city limits, they need to put some rules and regulations in with it. I know there are kennel rules and regulations. There's 7 different blankets of it. Are you going to give them the most lenient, or are you going to give them one? Those are the questions we want to answer. That's all we're asking.
Thank you, Mr. Leonelli. Okay, seeing no one else approach, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this particular item and bring this back to the commission for any other further questions. Mr. Baker, you might be able to refresh us a little bit on this one with the animal control in that area. I don't know. But what kind of regulations are they held to?
I'm sorry, I don't know those off the top of my
I didn't
head.
think- I thought I'd try anyway. They did say that there will be a fence surrounding the building and that they will bring those animals in at night. So I'm hoping that will cover those concerns. Any other questions from the commission for staff?
Again, for Mr. Baker, is that a condition we can impose? I hate to impose a condition that's already dealt with in the ordinance, but we don't know the answer.
Right, so your exercise is first to identify what you would think would be adverse impacts to the neighbors, and then to see what conditions you could impose that would mitigate those impacts. And if you're not sure what's in the ordinance and you think you have an adverse impact that you can mitigate, then you can go ahead and do a condition even if it is in the ordinance.
If I can add one thing,
If you would, please approach the podium.
it's very clearly.
Please come up to the
Come up here so
podium. We
we
got to
can
have
get you on the
an
recording.
audible record, sorry.
It is very clearly identified when they apply for a permit. At least Kennel Club of America has approvals, has standards set. All we're trying to avoid is saying one thing and having 12 dogs outside all night long, throwing a fit.
No, we
So
understand.
when they apply for their permit, which they need to be permitted, obviously that'll identify it, then we'll bring it to the city and try to get that authorized.
Okay, I appreciate that. Is the applicant here tonight? Would you like to address the planning commission on your intentions and plans out there? That might address these concerns a little bit more. Please state your name for the record, too, if you wouldn't mind.
Lonnie Getz. As far as the fencing around the property is just for...
Would you pull the microphone down, please?
Fencing around the property is, like we said, stated for the protection of the animals and the community. That is, we're not letting them outside. We have, what we have hired is a licensed and professional dog walker. That fence is where they will walk them on leash and go directly back inside. It will be 2 times a day for every dog. Sorry, can't walk and chew gum at the same time. We also have, what we plan on doing is that there's, I believe, 3 doors on that building, and as soon as you walk through any door, 2 of them won't be in use, but as soon as you walk through any door, we want to put up a fence and a gate, so it's a double door type thing. We will also be installing a security system with motion sensors at each door. So at night, if one dog were to get out of a kennel, if they come near a door or an exit, it will set it off, and we will know from our phones, and we'll be able to go there right away and put them back in. We have come up with applications for each and every person that wants to take care or board a dog. One of the statements is, or questions would be, is your dog a jumper? Has a dog jumped fences before? Do they need a covered kennel? So we will have covered kennels also for at night and stuff. So yeah, we have the fence around, we plan on putting the fence around. We plan on just dog walking within that, not up and down the street or anybody's neighborhoods or anything like that. Locks on everything and security systems.
So from here and there will be kennels inside the structure itself?
Kennels will be inside the
Dogs will
structures
be,
with
your
a
animals will be
double-gated
inside?
door from every
Okay.
exit possible.
And the only time they're coming outside is to walk them and exercise them and do what they need to do?
Correct, and we have already found basically a licensed and professional dog walker who's also been in a kennel tech and in the dog boarding world.
Okay. I think that makes sense. That clears up my questions. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Getz? Commissioner Goches?
Thank you. I'd like to ask a question or two. I'm wondering, I wasn't really clear about your boarding overnight. You do have a policy that you're going to board overnight. It's not just going to be daytime.
Correct.
Okay. And so I'm wondering about, you indicated that the only time the animals will be outside is when they're on a leash.
Correct.
There isn't a dog run for them to run and exercise?
We plan on, there's a big main room inside Hunt Sacred Meats, and we plan on kind of decorating that up and giving them a little playtime with little AstroTurf and stuff.
Okay. And then also, since you do have animals that are outside at times, at what time would they be brought inside the facility?
So it'll be 2 times a day, is what we've kind of come up with for every dog. One will be in morning, one will be at night. Morning would be probably, we haven't come up with an exact time. We're thinking like 9, 10 o'clock, and then at night we're thinking about 5 or 6 before we go home.
Okay. So after dusk, the residents can plan that there won't be animals outside?
It should be, for the most part, what we're thinking is we're not going to open until 8 or 9, so they're not going to get walked until 8 or 9 in the morning. And then, we're closing up around 6 o'clock, and so they're going to be walked before 6 o'clock. I'm thinking most of that covers after everybody's left for work and before everybody's come home.
Okay. So this is not monitored 24 hours only by your security cameras?
Correct. So at night, the security cameras will watch. During the day, it'll be us and the...
Great. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Getz. I appreciate that. All right. Now that I jumped ahead of myself. I've already let you up once after I've closed the public hearing, and now... Well, I could ask you to leave, though, for that kind of comment.
I'm back again. The Dog and Cat Kennel Club for Utah, Tooele County has nothing in here. Every other county has their listings in it. So just a bit of information that it probably would need to be recognized before we do that.
I think that pertains to anything we do, doesn't it?
That's for the licensing.
Yeah, that's for licensing and registration. That would be for the business permit part of that. So, all right, let's bring this back to item number 4, which is the Did I close the public hearing 3 times now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, it's now a decision
Make it stick this time.
on an authorized use of kennel on .5 acres located at approximately 580 North, 1000 West in the LI Light Industrial Zoning District. Just to get us all back on track here. We are here back to bring this back for a motion. I'll entertain a motion on item number 4 on our agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the conditional use permit request for the use of kennel on the property located at 580 North, 1000 West, based on the findings and subject to the conditions listed in the staff report dated 15 May 2023.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Robinson. Do I have a second?
Commissioner, can we impose a condition that is not listed in the staff report?
We can discuss one for sure, yes.
If, as a discussion item, that animals that are kept overnight are required to be maintained inside and not outside.
Okay, Mr. Robinson, you
Okay with that?
okay? We're going to go ahead and amend that motion to include Commissioner Goches's condition that animals would be
Do you want to state what you're trying to mitigate, Melody?
Noise.
Okay,
noise.
that works for me.
Will that suffice, Mr. Baker?
More is always better.
More is always better. That's kind of what the answer I was expecting for you. Noise. What else can we add to this mitigation?
When I say more is better, I mean, you could articulate why you think there would be noise if they were allowed out after hours and whatever. It may seem obvious, but a court requires you to articulate it on the record.
So noise for, yeah. I don't know how to articulate it.
Just so that I'm clear too, Commissioner, was your amendment to his motion to be considered a second as well to his original motion? He's accepted your amendment, but were you intending to second his motion?
I can second with that condition.
Okay. And you're okay with that still? Okay.
Yep.
Commissioner Robinson, with Commissioner Robinson, motion to approve the conditional use permit with the condition that animals would be put inside during the night to mitigate noise and other detrimental effects that could happen.
To delineate what night means. Because if we're just saying dark at 4:30 in the afternoon, that kind of screws up the walking part. Do you want to
Impose a time?
Just do the same as the noise ordinance?
whatever the ordinance says?
Yep.
I think that falls under the noise ordinance anyway, so.
Fair with that?
Okay. Hopefully our minutes taker got all of that discussion in there. She's awesome anyway, so we're good. All right, and I got a second from Commissioner Goches. All right. Commissioner Hammer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor?
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan? Aye. Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Goches?
Aye.
I am Chairman Hamilton. I also vote aye. That one passes. Moving on to number 5 on our agenda is a recommendation on a three-lot preliminary subdivision plan request by Curdy Hallam to approve Hallam subdivision proposed to be located at 400 East, 1000 North in the R18 residential zone on 3.37 acres. Mr. Agard.
Thank you, Commissioners. This preliminary subdivision plan affects the wedge-shaped parcel highlighted in red on the aerial photograph. The property is located at 400 East and is north of 1000 North and is directly north of the England Acres Park. On the east side, we have an existing residential subdivision, and then on the west side, property is largely undeveloped. The property is currently zoned R18 residential, as our properties to the east, and we have some R17 to the south and RR5 to the west. The preliminary subdivision plan is a preliminary proposal to subdivide a relatively difficult piece of property. You'll notice that the Middle Canyon drainage runs down the east side of the property from north to south, and that limits the amount of property that the developer can actually develop without having to alter the drainage. In order to alter that drainage, you'd have to go through FEMA approvals and have a certified letter of map revision and so forth, which takes time. So the applicant has decided to do the subdivision without amending that drainage channel. So there won't be any impacts to the existing drainage as it currently exists. As you can see, there's 3 lots proposed. The lots range in size from 8,000 feet up to 8,700 square feet. He's proposing the construction of Halim Lane, which is will be a standard public right-of-way, including sidewalks and improvements on both sides of the road. The lane currently terminates into a temporary cul-de-sac turnaround easement that will be improved with asphalt or concrete. And that's to facilitate emergency vehicles turning around so they don't have to back out onto 1000 North, which, as you know, is a very busy right-of-way. And then there is a stormwater detention basin located north of the turnaround easement. So after reviewing the subdivision meets all of the standards for lot sizes and for public right-of-way improvements as required by the subdivision ordinance and other pertinent city standards. So we are recommending approval of the preliminary subdivision plan with the basic housekeeping conditions listed in your staff report. If you have any questions, happy to answer them for you.
All right, let's bring this back to the commission for questions. Commissioner Goches?
Thank you. It does indicate that Halim Lane is a dedicated public road, so I just wanted to clarify that that is not a private road, that will be dedicated to the city and will be responsible for snow removal and so forth. Is that
That's correct. It will be a public road.
Thanks.
Andrew, just out of curiosity, that retention area to the north, that doesn't do anything messing with the floodplain either, right?
Could you say that again?
The retention area, water detention area to the north of the cul-de-sac, that doesn't mess with anything near that floodplain area?
No, it is outside of the floodplain area.
All right, if there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion on this recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I move we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the Halim subdivision preliminary subdivision plan request by Kurti Halim, application number P21-675, based on the findings subject to the conditions listed in the staff report dated May 16, 2023.
I have a positive recommendation from Commissioner Sloan. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And a second from Commissioner Robinson. Commissioner Hammer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor?
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Goches?
Aye.
I am Chairman Hamilton. I also vote aye. This one passes with the positive recommendation going up to the City Council for further action. Moves us on to number 6 on our agenda tonight is a public hearing, and I'll circle that right now, and recommendation on a proposed ordinance amendments to Tooele City's landscaping requirements as found in Tooele City Codes 4-11, 4-11A, 7-4, 7-11, 7-11A, 7-14, 7-16, and Table 2 and 7-19. Amendments proposed by Tooele City. Item also includes a discussion on the proposed Tooele City tree selection guide. Mr. Agard.
Thank you, Commissioners. This one has a lot of information in it as well as the first item on your agenda, but I will try to keep it succinct so we can move this meeting along. We have begun to evaluate our landscaping standards for 4 main reasons. The first reason that I have listed here is we want to be able to qualify for the state of Utah's Flip Your Strip turf buyback programs. And in order to do that, our ordinances need to come in line with the requirements of the state. So that's one of the reasons we're looking at amending our landscape standards. The second reason is, as you are well aware, Tooele City has some water issues. One of the best and easiest ways to try and manage our water is to conserve water. And so we are looking at our ordinances and doing what we can to try and keep water out of unusable or less usable spaces. So that's one of the things that we're looking at as well, is how can we conserve water. And then we want to codify certain landscape elements for use in required landscaping. There are some ground covers that we currently don't allow or the ordinance doesn't address, and so we want to make those part of our ordinance, and then also to clarify what is considered dry landscaping. As the chairman mentioned, there are a handful of ordinances that are affected by these changes. 2 of them are in Title IV, which is basically our building and streets ordinance. Those pertain to sidewalks and residential park strip landscaping requirements. The others are in Title VII, which is our uniform zoning code, which we deal with quite a bit. There are some changes that are universal that will apply to all of those ordinances shown in that list. They are requiring all street trees to comply with the Tooele City Tree Selection Guide, requiring drip or bubbler style irrigations for plantings and dryscapes. Bubblers are very effective, or excuse me, drip systems are very effective. They provide water directly to the root systems of the plant. Spray heads don't need to be used in areas of cobble and dry landscaping. So we want to make sure that irrigation systems are done with drip and bubbler systems. And then the ordinance amendments prohibit the use of sod or turf grass in the park strips. And it also authorizes the use of artificial turf as an appropriate ground cover to satisfy landscaping requirements. So those are the changes that you'll see pretty much throughout all these ordinances. And then there are some unique changes that are unique to each code. Title 4, Chapter 11A, Park Strip, this one increases the amount of time one can request a release of the tree bond from 2 years to 3 years. We found that after 2 years, a lot of people don't come in and get their bond. So we're increasing it to 3 years. It also allows more time for trees to become established, and we can determine if they're, in fact, alive and healthy. And then Title 7, Chapter 11, Design Review, prohibits the use of sod or turf in industrial zoning districts. So if you're in an industrial zone, no sod, no turf. It has to be dryscape. We encourage planting and trees, but no sod and turf in industrial zones. And then if you're in a commercial and mixed-use zone, turf grass and sod is only for areas involving active recreation, such as a sports field or play area or something similar to that. Title 7, Chapter 11A is our multifamily residential zone. This zone is a little different. Multifamily zones tend to have open spaces that are designated to recreation of the residents of those facilities. And obviously, you're not going to want to throw a ball on cobble. So you have to have some grass in those areas, some irrigated grass. And so what this ordinance does is it encourages water-wise plantings when possible and limits the use of sod or turf grass in multifamily zones to areas involving recreation and such as a sports field or play area or recreation space. Title 7, Chapter 14, Single-Family Residential, applies to all developments approved after. That's an error. That should be 4/1/2023. So if a development was approved after April 1st, this ordinance would apply. So that's basically all new developments. And if a lot has 250 square feet of landscaping or more, this ordinance would apply. And then what it does is it limits sod in the front and side yards to 50% of the total landscaping. So half the front yard and side yard needs to be something other than thirsty sod and thirsty turf grass. And then Chapter 19 of Title 7 subdivision, it addresses sidewalk and concrete thickness and then requires street trees to be placed every 30 to 40 feet apart. Oh, I neglected to attach my tree selection guide slides. I believe they're in your staff report. So I will verbally explain to you what we're doing with that and forego the slides. That's what happens when you're doing 3 jobs. You get a little busy. So the tree selection guide was put together by myself. I used to be a certified arborist and a landscape architect, so I have a pretty good knowledge of trees and especially tree species in Utah. And I was asked to reevaluate our tree selection guide and see what we can do to recommend good trees that will do well. So I went through a wide variety of trees, and I selected trees that are considered known performers. And I say performers because the park strip is it's a difficult environment for trees to grow. Those areas are subjected to vehicle emissions, to road salts from snowplows, from excess heat from the asphalt, vehicle damage, and all kinds of other issues. It's a very hazardous place for a tree to grow. And so I didn't want to put trees in there that tend to have problems. So the list that I provided recommends medium-sized trees in park strips 5 to 8 feet wide. Anything smaller than that, we don't want trees in there. They'll end up lifting the pavement and causing problems to public infrastructure and so forth. So the park strip has to be 5 to 8 feet wide, and you can install one of those trees that are considered medium size. Park strips wider than 8 feet need to have trees that are considered, or you can do large and medium trees. Now, when I say large and medium, that's kind of a misnomer, okay? There isn't anything in a medium-sized tree that makes it stop growing suddenly when it becomes medium size. Okay, a tree continues to grow until it's dead. That sounds weird, but that's how it works. And what that means when I say a medium-sized tree versus a large tree, it really relates to the longevity of the tree itself. So if it's a medium-sized tree like a honey locust, it usually lives about 40 years. Okay? You plant a bur oak in your park strip, bur oaks can live up to 120 to 200 years. And so the longer a tree grows, the bigger it's going to get. And so that's really kind of the distinction between medium-sized and large-sized trees. Trees keep growing bigger and bigger and bigger. Eventually they break stuff. And that's why big trees, large trees are recommended for the park strip. The tree selection guide also discourages the use of some trees. You'll notice that in that list that there are some trees that are popular. Quaking aspens are very popular in Tooele. They make a lousy street tree. They are very susceptible to borers, to pollution, to heat. They sucker everywhere. They are not a good street tree. Another one that's very popular is the Chanticleer pear. They're beautiful trees, they're upright, but they're subject to fire blight. And we plant so many of them in this area that when we get outbreaks of fire blight that damage and destroy the trees. So I did not recommend popular trees, even though they grow well. The list is all performers, trees that are tough and can handle those areas. There's also in that list some prohibited trees. We don't want to see evergreens in the park strip. Colorado blue spruce does not work in a park strip. We don't want to see Chinese elm or Russian olives or any of those nuisance trees in the park strip. And then the guide also includes just some tips for planting and spacing and so forth. The tree selection guide is not part of these ordinance amendments. It's just a guide. I would like to have the Planning Commission recommend it and hopefully the City Council approve it with a resolution so that it has some teeth behind it. But it is not going to be an ordinance. So if somebody wants to plant a quaking aspen in their park strip, they can, but they're going to have problems with it. So those are the amendments that we're requesting in addition to the tree species guide. If you have any questions, happy to answer them for you.
All right, let's bring this back to the commission for questions and comments.
I've got one more of a comment than anything else.
All right, Commissioner Sloan, go ahead. I'll get you next, Commissioner Coaches.
Hers is probably more valid. Mine's a pet peeve. This ordinance in my day job has driven me nuts since 1997. And specifically, the requirement by the city that we plant trees in the park strip. I appreciate the change to the ordinance suggesting that we'll no longer have grass and turf and sod in those park strips. My personal opinion is that what few trees people are maintaining in those park strips are there because there is sod in the park strip. They're not putting in drip systems to service that one or two trees on their thing. So consequently, are we not asking to have dead trees? Most people aren't coming back for the bond because they don't know that it's there. But the reality is we're already having issues keeping these trees in play. And I think we may have just made it harder. So I'm kind of the opinion, let's either get rid of the trees in the park strips completely or put something in there that requires their care. We've already put in the ordinance that any xeriscape and such things on the landscape require a drip system. I'm not a big fan of the government overreach, but it seems like if we're going to overreach and require trees, we might as well require them to be taken care of as well.
Agreed.
Commissioner Coaches.
Thank you. I had a question regarding Title VII, Chapter 14 in residential zoning districts. Lots with at least 250 feet of landscaping shall be landscaped with no more than 50% of front and side yards as sod or turf grass. How is that going to be enforced? That's my question, is enforcement.
That's an excellent question, and I don't have an answer for that right now. It's one that I've actually brought up myself about it. Maybe Mr. Baker has a little more insight on that, but I don't have any insight to give you.
Might be a another discussion for further down the road, huh?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner
Andrew, you
Alfredson.
mentioned that we're changing things to fit the requirements for the state flip the strip thing. Which of these fits those requirements? What changes are there?
Having an ordinance that prohibits sod in the park strip and so forth. It just basically anything in our code that encourages drought-tolerant, water-wise landscaping.
So it's
the
not
requirement for
anything
sod that's the
specific.
problem.
Okay, it's the sod requirement, okay.
Commissioner Stoll?
The rest of my pet peeve. This is a personal one because it happens on my street all the time. I've got a nameless neighbor not too far from me that probably has a dozen trees in his park strip. They're kind of the willow variety, so they're overhanging 10 to 15 feet out into the street.
Bad tree for a park strip.
Is that your arborist coming out and saying that, or is that something we can enforce? Because I literally have had to call, because you can't see around the corner onto a busy street because we're already maxed out on trees. We're beyond maxed out on trees. And especially in the spring, they're dangerous. So do we need to put a maximum in as well?
A maximum number of trees in the park strip? We can look at that.
Thank you.
We could do a spacing requirement. Maybe the one that's already approved for, or we're considering for subdivisions already addresses that.
Thank
And
you.
that is an ordinance. That is something that is an ordinance.
I'll look at that.
Andrew, I'll point out an obscure provision in our code that does say that trees planted in the park strip shall comply with the street tree guide, and all other varieties are prohibited. So you've got some teeth in your guide already.
No, well, there you go. There you go. Okay.
Any other questions?
No,
Yes.
I understand your concerns, Commissioner Sloan. Hopefully with these trees being better trees, that maybe we can have some more improvement in our street trees. That's the first step in the process.
Commissioner Sloan, where we do have trees that impede normal sidewalk usage and road usage, Tooele City can and should go trim those when we know about them, and if they're too big of a problem, remove them. And we have removed a number of trees in the last couple of years because of those types of problems, giant cottonwoods, for example, in a 3-foot park strip.
Thank you.
And the Public Works Department does regularly go out and prune trees and maintain them. They shouldn't be. The adjacent landowner should be maintaining their own trees, but in cases where they don't, the Public Works Department does step in and take care of those from time to time.
Commissioner Goches?
Thank you. Andrew, I just had a question regarding the term turf grass and turf sod and also artificial turf. Is there any, can you tell me what the differences are, and is there a restriction from using artificial turf?
Currently, there are no restrictions for artificial turf, but it's just not mentioned in the code. And so these amendments put it in there, so if somebody wants to do their front yard in artificial turf, they can do so. In regards to the difference between sod and turf grass, sod is the stuff you get from a farm. It comes in the big rolls and you just lay it out. Turf grass tends to be done with seed or hydroseed. So it's more of an issue of application and how it's installed than it is the actual growing materials.
Thank you.
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Hammer.
Or a comment, maybe. On storm water retention basins, and then the ones that are turf and grass are mowed and kept fairly nice. I have one near me that's rocks and garbage. And there are some neighbors who have taken it upon themselves that they keep it clean regularly. Where, I don't know, what I guess my question is where does the pride and the beauty come if we have all this garbage and no one required to clean it up? And like I said, if you have to mow it, then it stays nice. So I have a hard time with that one.
That's one of the catch-22s to going with a dryscape. Contrary to popular belief, dryscape landscaping in Utah takes more work than sod because garbage does collect in the rock.
And weeds,
The dust blows in on top of the rock and the weeds germinate in the dust on top of the weed barrier fabric. They are more labor intensive. I mean, there's no argument there. Really, it just takes a commitment from those charged with taking care of them to maintain them.
Well, do we have any ordinance or anything about that, that whoever is in charge of maintaining that do so? Or are there fines imposed? How does that work?
If a basin is private or included in an easement, the private owner would need to maintain those basins. If a basin is dedicated to Tooele City, the city is responsible to maintain those. And the city has to maintain things based upon the number of staff that they have available to maintain them. So in the city's case, you're talking about resources and manpower, which I don't know how the Parks Department currently lines up with their manpower, but they have a lot to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question, Andrew, about the park strip thing where it's less than 5 feet and saying that the trees must be required on the private property. Is that how it reads now, or is that an addition? And I'm confused how that works.
I believe that's a new addition to the code. And what that is the purpose for trees in a park strip is many. One of them is aesthetics. Another one is they act as a windbreak. Another one is they provide some heat reduction to sidewalks and to the pavement and so forth. And they also just provide a nice streetscape. So if they can't put it in a park strip because the park strip's too narrow, just moving it behind the sidewalk still creates that streetscape appearance.
So putting it in their front yard in the sidewalk?
Yeah, just put it behind the front sidewalk. So it still acts as a street tree, but it's just not in a narrow park strip.
I don't like that at all.
This is a legislative matter, so you can make that recommendation.
Because that's my front yard. I get the city manages the whole park strip thing, but to tell me I got to put a tree in my front yard really bugs me. It's a great idea. And I just, again, what Chris mentioned about overreach, anyway, I grew up where God just put trees on the grass instead of a desert like Utah is. So being told I have to plant a tree just grates at my inner East Coast bias.
Any other questions or comments for staff? It was a good discussion on this one. All right. I'll entertain a motion on item number 6 on our agenda.
Did you open the public comment?
Oh, I circled it too, twice.
And mentioned that you said.
And mentioned it. Oh, I need to go home and take a nap. All right, this one does require a public hearing. You guys are tired of hearing me say that tonight, but that's okay. I will go ahead and open the public hearing on this proposed amendment to Tooele City's landscape requirements. If you would go ahead and approach the podium, write your name for the record, and state your name for the audible record.
Always scares me, and there's a room full of realtors and they're quiet.
It doesn't happen very often.
Not in my experience.
I'm Kalani Mascherino. As a member of the Tooele Valley Garden Club, I think it's awesome that we're getting on the Flip the Strip. I've already done it. A lot of people on my street have either hardscape, horribly messy trees, or we've got, like, my kids can't ride down the sidewalk because the tree has undone the sidewalk. I do have a dead tree over at Spencer's Field that I would like removed before it takes out a fence, but they've got a lot of things to do. I wanted to clarify that when we're asking, same with Chris, when we're asking new developments, and Mr. Robertson, to put in a tree, my friends several years ago built over in the Perry Homes by the temple. And she was very upset that she had to put in a tree as part of the HOA. So how are we going to tell the HOA that they need to change their requirements?
We can't tell the HOA anything. They're a private organization. They set their own rules.
Right. So, but a lot of the time, same with Chris, the trees are, they're pretty and we need them to breathe. I watch the Lorax, but It causes so many accidents, and they're messy, and they tear up our sidewalks, and I just don't think that a park strip is where the trees should be. There's too many awesome, water-wise, xeriscape plants and things that you can do in your park strip where we are lucky enough to have a park strip and sidewalks. So, and I just think that we don't need trees in park strips. You can put your trees in your yard where you would like them.
Except for Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mascherino.
I want them.
Hi, my name is Jordan Taylor. I live in Lake Point, but I do have property here in the city. And the, enforcement was mentioned as how do you enforce only 50% of the front yards being sod or such as that. And in Lake Point where I live, when a developer gives, 0.65 acre feet of water for every lot, we are metered in such a way that we get 0.65 acre feet of water every year, and that's for our household use, that's for our landscaping, that's for anything we do. And the water utility out there, we pay a monthly or quarterly dues, just maintenance dues for the wells and things like that, but we don't actually get a water bill until we hit our allotment. And if we go over that allotment of whatever our water share might be, then we get prorated and it goes through the roof. And so they say, I live on 2 acres and I have 0.65 acre feet of water. And so they say with that allotment of water, you can plant approximately 5,000 square feet of sod, and they give you the parameters with that allotment of water. And as far as enforcement goes, I think the city could look at doing something like that. Our water meters actually sync every day, and if you turn it on, you can get an email saying, hey, today you did really good, or today you did really bad. And sometimes you get an alert that says you've gone way over for your daily budget on your water. They also can detect leaks. It'll say you've had 0.2 gallons per hour going for more than 24 hours, and it'll send you a notification to your email, let you know you're leaking. Those are things that have helped me be able to live on 2 acres and only have 0.65 acre feet of water. It's a pretty small allotment for that amount of land. But everybody around us has the same allotment, and they're all on an acre or more, and we're using fraction of the amount of water that we all used to at our older homes. I used to live in West Jordan, had an acre of grass out in West Jordan, and just watered the heck out of it. And out here, I've got a very small amount of grass, and I have 5 kids. They do just fine with the small amount that we have. One thing that the water utility does provide is that when you are first putting in your landscaping in a new home, they have a contract with a landscaping service, and they give you a free hour of consultation to help plan your landscaping for a water-wise landscape at your house. I don't know what the cost is to the water utility, but that is something that they provide so that when people move into these new neighborhoods, it used to, when I was a kid, when you landscaped the yard, you rolled out sod and you just started watering it, and that's changed here in Utah. But that hour of landscape kind of coaching has helped a lot of people design a much, people in Tooele County tend to be more industrious do-it-yourselfers, and a lot of people don't hire the landscape architects or don't want to spend the money on that, but having that free hour of time to consult with and actually really narrow things down has helped our community conserve a lot of water, and we've been able to stretch it pretty far, and maybe that's something that could be looked at in the future here too. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Appreciate that comment. All right, seeing no one else approach, I'll go ahead and close this public hearing for this evening and bring it back to the commission for further action.
Chairman, may I ask one more question,
Yes,
Andrew?
Commissioner Hammer.
Sorry.
You're fine.
I know it's late. What, in reference to Commissioner Robinson's question about if your sidewalk is less than 5 feet wide, will you explain to me what that looks like? If you don't have trees in your park strip, then they're just next to the sidewalk? What is that? I don't know what that looks like.
Inside the sidewalk.
Just in your front yard,
Just
random
behind
in
the
my
sidewalk in the front yard.
Well, that looks dumb.
That's, yes. I agree, but you said it more succinctly.
That's what you get with me. Okay, thanks. I like number 5.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Commissioner Hammer. I'll entertain a motion on item number 6.
Mr. Chairman, I would move we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the Tooele City Landscaping Text Amendment request by Tooele City for the purpose of revising the city codes regarding minimum landscaping standards for park strips, residential developments, commercial and industrial developments based on the following findings. The ones on the staff report will do, but I also want to make one exception. I want to add the same requirement for a bubble irrigation system to any trees that are in the park strip. As a requirement as well. I don't know how best to state that, but I don't have the chapter in front of me, but I want the same requirement for, since we're requiring trees, I want to require that we're maintaining with water as well, because we're not doing sod anymore. Is that clear as mud?
Clear as mud. Mr. Baker, did you need some clarification?
No, I think it's a great addition. In my reading of this a couple weeks ago, I thought that Jim Bolser had written that requirement already into the amendments, but
I didn't see it, but that doesn't mean it's not there.
If not, it's...
So please
Make that motion.
make your condition.
Okay. I get a positive recommendation with an added condition from Commissioner Sloan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Hammer, how do you vote?
Nay.
Commissioner Proctor, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan? Aye. Commissioner Robinson?
Nay, but I'm going to say something too, because I
please.
know this is a recommendation, so I'm saying my piece so it goes with the recommendation. Well, at least Maurice will hear it. There's a lot of good things in this, but I think there's some overreach, and so that's why I'm voting no.
Thank you for that clarification. Commissioner Goches?
I'm also voting nay, if I can explain just that there are questions that I had regarding the enforcement that need to be addressed.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification as well. I am Chairman Hamilton. I am voting yes. That puts us at a 3-3 tie.
So there's your recommendation.
There's your recommendation. It's a split recommendation. There we go. Is that going to be, it is a recommendation, so that will suffice for going up to the city council. Okay. That's kind of what I figured, all right. Moves us on to our next agenda, agenda item here. It's getting late, I can tell now. City council reports.
I didn't bring a stool again, sorry.
Oh geez, I keep forgetting too.
I know. Thanks again, as always, thank you. Great discussions tonight. I just have a couple of things that I thought I would mention. One, in our last meeting, we did make some changes in regards to our policy in allowing a fee in lieu of water rights conveyance. As most of you know, we do sometimes sell water for commercial development within the city, and we've been putting into practice a few things, some stipulations, I guess, on that when we sell the water, and we've made that more of into a resolution form. So it's something that we follow and don't have to discuss every time. We also spent some more money in regards to the sewer plant and the Headworks building. We hired a construction management company to oversee that. It's required for us to do that, so we did it. And then we added a $50 fine, which is what we're allowed to add in municipal elections for people who do not file their campaign financial report on time. Yeah.
So Commissioner Sloan, get your things filed on time when you run.
No, actually, I was going to have a comment for that, because it's one of the things that makes me crazier than park strip trees is when, and we've got city council elections coming up. And right now it's $35 to file, or is it?
I don't remember. I think it's 50.
It's a
pretty
nominal
inexpensive.
amount. The reason I bring it up is because how many times, and probably people in this room are willing to do it on a given day, if they're driving down the street on filing day and something goes wrong and they feel like the city's at fault, they're going to stop in here, they're going to file for city council, and then later when they get cooled off, they're not going to be running. I don't have a problem with that per se. What I do have problems with, as long as they're on the ballot and the math works out, we're going to have a primary.
And it's
Whether
expensive.
whether they're interested in running or not, we're going to have a primary. And that primary is going to cost us $35,000 to do because somebody had a hissy fit coming down Main Street. And all we're costing them is $35 to vent. But in the meantime, we're all spending $35,000 for them to run for office that they're not actually interested in running with. So I think the only thing I would say, and I think I shared this probably a couple years ago, I would love to see us make the entrance, the pay to play a little bit higher so that it's not susceptible to hissy fits.
I'll pass that on.
Thank you.
I don't know if I'll be able to do a direct quote because I didn't write it down, but I'll try.
I will text everybody and say hissy fit.
Thank you.
Can I also ask one other favor since we're in such a good mood? You heard a lot of comment tonight about water and our landscaping plan. I love the work that went into it. And I made the motion that we include water in the park strip. I would perfectly be just as comfortable to eliminate that requirement completely. And I appreciate what Andrew said about the aesthetics and the temperature and all the positive things of trees, but I've been watching this for too long, and I know how well they're either maintained or not. And it's either exactly what Ms. Mascherino said, where they've destroyed the sidewalk, leaving a big bill for a homeowner, or they're just left to die. We're wasting somebody's time and somebody's money in either event. So
Can also bring that up. Thank you. Any other questions?
This one does not require a public hearing.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councilwoman Manzione. Moves us on to number 8 on our agenda is a review and approval of Planning Commission minutes for the meeting held on April 26, 2023. Is there any additions or corrections to those minutes? I'll entertain a motion for those.
I move that we approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Proctor. The chair will second. Commissioner Hammer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor?
Aye.
Commissioner Slow? Aye. Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Goches?
Aye.
I am Chairman Hamilton. I also vote aye. That one passes.
can I have a moment before you?
Yes, Commissioner Sloan.
I just wanted to take a second and recognize that some of my favorite people are in the room today, because realtors are some of my favorite people. I suspect that this particular brokerage is here working on a designation. We work really, really hard to be professionals in what we do. This is certainly not my brokerage, because my brokerage doesn't show up for this stuff, just me. But I would like to commend Caleb and his group from Wise Choice Real Estate for being at this meeting and paying attention. And I see notes being taken and snarky things being said at a level I can't hear, so that's good. But thanks for being, not everybody understands that realtors live here too. They don't just work here. So I appreciate them. Won't even talk about Kalani. She's here more than I am. So again, thank you very much for your professionalism. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you all for attending. We appreciate an audience every time we have a meeting, so welcome out anytime. Thank you, guys. With that having been said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you, guys.